As we reported earlier in the program, the Prime Minister today has confirmed he is prepared to water down his signature policy, his paid parental leave scheme. Yes, this is a back down. Instead of a $150,000 income threshold, he's willing to lower that to $100,000, meaning the maximum payment would be $50,000 for parents taking 6 months off at replacement salary to have a baby. Now, this is exactly what the Greens had demanded. Will they now support it? The Deputy Greens leader, Adam Bant, joins me now from Melbourne. Thanks for your time. Are you going to back what the Prime Minister is now offering in paid parental leave?
Well, let's see a plan first. As you said, we've been pushing for paid parental leave to become a workplace entitlement for some time. It's been a key part of Greens policy, and we want it to be fair and we want it to be affordable. The proposal that we took to the election had a cap of $100,000, but also had a number of other elements to it as well. According to the costings that we received...
What are these sticking points?
Well, according to the costings that we received from the Parliamentary Budget Office, the company tax levy alone was not enough to fund that scheme. You'd need to find additional revenue from somewhere else. And the Greens are very clear. So I think our first point that we'd say in response to the announcement today is that we're not in a position to give this the tick off yet, because we want to know how it's going to be funded. We will not be party to taking one single dollar from health, from education, from welfare to fund this scheme. It needs to be funded by the big business levy, and the advice from the Parliamentary Budget Office at the moment is that it's not. But let's take a step back. We still haven't actually seen a proposal from the government yet, and part of that might be because there's still a great deal of uncertainty as to whether the government's even got the numbers on its own side to get this through. One senior front bencher...
In terms of the Greens, in terms of the Greens numbers, which you and your party can control, this gets to the funding of it. Would you rather see the company tax levy increased to fully fund this?
That may be something that has to be looked at. Either the company tax levy increased, maybe the threshold needs to be further reduced. At the moment, we haven't yet seen a costed scheme. Well,
which would you prefer? Would you prefer a higher company tax levy or a lower threshold at, I don't know, $80,000 or $70,000?
Look, we'd be happy to look at all of the options, but at the end of the day, the principle for this, for us, is that if you're going to have paid parental leave as a workplace entitlement, it should be funded by big business and by a big business tax levy, as has been proposed by us and has been proposed by the government. And if the existing levy is not enough to fund the scheme that's being looked at, then perhaps there is a case for increasing that levy.
But you are certainly moving closer together, aren't you? I mean, you've had a win here in getting this threshold knocked down from $150,000 to $100,000.
Well, look, we've been pushing for paid parental leave as a workplace entitlement for some time. We believe in full participation by women. I think for Tony Abbott, his idea of women's participation is ladies, please bring a plate. I think this, for him, he's a late convert to this idea, and it's probably about trying to win some votes amongst certain constituencies. I don't think it's going to work. I think people will see through it. But if along the way we can deliver something that is good for women and good for families, we're happy to have a look at it. But to come back to one of the points that I said before, it is important for us to know that the government has the numbers on its own side to deliver this. We've seen in the past what happens on the Conservative side of politics, where when a leader goes out and advocates something that doesn't enjoy the support of their caucus. It's how Tony Abbott became leader of the opposition and then subsequently Prime Minister. And we're not going to be part of something where there's a split in the Liberals. And when Barnaby Joyce, a front bencher, goes out and says, look, it doesn't matter what the Greens do, this isn't going to get through anyway because so many Liberals and Nationals are going to cross the floor that we'll kill the scheme, that makes us think twice.
All right. What about the debt tax? Now, will you support a levy? And again, this hasn't been announced yet, let alone decided upon, but the report's suggesting an increase in the income tax rate for those on earning more than $80,000 a year of a 1% increase, and then those earning more than $180,000, a 2% increase. That is targeting a tax increase at the wealthy. Would you support that?
No, we won't support a debt levy, and I'll tell you why. One of the big problems that we have in the debate in this country at the moment about balancing the budget is that there's this steadfast refusal to look at the massive subsidies that are going to the fossil fuel industries, to the banks, which between them could generate something in the order of $20 billion over the forward estimates if we're prepared to stand up to them. And that would mean you don't have to come after everyday Australians for things like a debt levy. Now, we have a structural problem with revenue in the budget.
I can understand that's a long-term Greens position on those benefits to corporate Australia and the mining sector in particular. But if this legislation comes forward saying we want to put up taxes on the wealthy, the Greens would actually vote against that?
Well, Tony Abbott is talking about a so-called temporary debt levy, and we don't think it's justified. We think that if you want to fix the budget problems in this country, you need to have a serious look at the revenue and the tax expenditure side in particular.
Sure, but just let me get this clear, because I'm a little surprised in some ways. Adam Bandt, you as Deputy Greens leader are saying the wealthy already pay enough tax.
Saying that if you want to have a serious debate about fixing the budget situation in this country, we're up for that. And if that means having a debate about the appropriate level of tax and revenue to raise from some of the wealthiest in this country, then we're up for that as well. But surely anyone would think it's right that you start with those who can most afford it. And that has to be the wealthiest companies. Mining companies are sending 83% of their profits overseas.
Yeah, sure, and I appreciate those points, but here we're talking about individual personal income tax. That's what we're talking about here. We'll see what the government does on those other fronts, but on this, you would vote against a higher tax rate for the wealthiest Australians.
Well, look, I have very clearly seared in my mind over the last 3 years, seen what this Prime Minister did when we imposed a price on pollution that saw some of the biggest polluters pay for their pollution, and half of that money find its way into the pockets of everyday Australians. He went out and said, wrongly, but went out and said that was an unjustified tax and that governments should fall on the basis of it. Now, if that's what he's prepared to do and that's the basis of his ascent to power, then he's got to operate according to that standard, and we'll hold him to that standard.
But you want him to break promises on all sorts of things. The carbon tax, paid parental leave scheme, the mining tax. You want him to break those promises. Why not this one?
Well, happy to, as I said, happy to have a discussion about how to raise the revenue to fund the services that Australians expect. But we think you've got to start looking at the people who are backing the Liberal Party and this government to the hilt. And that's some of Australia's and the world's largest corporations that are getting subsidised by significant corporate welfare. I mean, how can we be asked to say to someone on 100,000 or a family on 100 or 150,000, you should pay more so that Gina Rinehart can continue to put cheap diesel fuel into her trucks and into her mining operations? I mean, that's just not pay any higher income tax. People like Gina Rinehart. Adam Bandt, we will have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thanks very much, David.
We'll take